I wasn't expecting him to really be the heart of my and soul of my story. I knew it would be the most difficult part of writing my book. I've done a lot of interviews and press since he passed, and I always tell everybody not to ask me questions about when he was sick because it hurts too much to relive it. So it was definitely, very difficult to relive it in the book. But now that I did that, there's something freeing about that, and now I have a new standard answer for people that ask me questions that I'm uncomfortable answering. I just say, read the book. Yes, I extensively talk about that in the second to the last chapter of my book. It was the 20th. It was called the Mother of All Expos. It was the 20th anniversary of the Kiss Expo, and I've always said no to doing those type of things because it took me a very long time to forget about certain things. I mean, to move on from Eric was very difficult, and to create, my own life without him, to accept that he was gone, and then build my own identity and my own celebrity. And then the minute I do that, the internet comes out, and then I'm famous again for being Eric's girlfriend. So I've finally embraced it, that I am probably just as famous for being Eric's girlfriend as I will be for any of my own accomplishments. And this sounds strange, but I sort of consider him a partner in my book because he's my guiding light and he's the heart and soul of it. So it sounds strange, but I wouldn't consider that my own accomplishment. I almost consider it ours. Obviously, I'm still not over the guy. I have always shied away from it because I never wanted to make money off of his name or, ride his coattails. I never felt right about it. I still have his toothbrush, his sunglasses. I have his drumsticks, his jacks. I've never sold anything. I've offers, obviously. I never would. I just, it felt wrong to me. But Bruce Kulick called me and told me that these are good people, that they, the people that produced the show, Keith Leroux and some other guys, he said that, they'd be calling me, and he said, I can trust them. And he said, I know you're afraid of the Kiss fans. In the past, I had some creepy emails and things and years ago. And he said, but, don't judge them all by a few bad ones. He said, they're wonderful people. I think you'll really enjoy it. You're going to have a good time. And, and I told Bruce that I feel odd. If I go to a Glamour con or a Playboy Expo, I feel like I belong there because I earned my place there. But it feels sort of strange to be there just because I was his girlfriend and he's not here to be there anymore. You know what I'm saying? It's felt strange to me. But Bruce convinced me, that I'm going to go and bring my own photos to sign. And then Keith Leroux called and, he said, I really think the fans would, they're booked with guests already. He said, that being said, I really think the fans would really enjoy meeting you. So we really want you to come. So basically I got talked into it. And the first day I was okay. I was all right. The second day I started to break down a little bit because, there was fans who remembered things about him that I had worked to forget, things like what kind of cologne he wore, things like that are so personal that by the end of the second day, I was just, there's parties every night afterwards. I couldn't even go. Eric Singer and Lita Ford and the guys from Gene Simmons' band, Bruce, the late Bob Kulick, they were all jamming, and I went the night before. I had a great time with that, and I went to my room and I just started shaking and giant tears rolling down my face. I felt as if it happened yesterday. I think that year, I think it was, let's see, it'll be 27, it was probably the 27-year anniversary. So it was a couple of years ago of his passing around that time. And yeah, bringing up, I had so many fans come up to me and tell me that they were shaking and crying and saying I was as close to Eric as that they were ever going to be. And it meant so much to them to meet me. I had other fans tell me that they'd met him in the past and now they completely understand our bond because they said I'm exactly like him. I'm just as friendly and personable as he was and just as sweet. And I absolutely loved that compliment. I couldn't ask for a nicer compliment than that. And then it was actually, even though I cried a lot alone afterwards, what I realized, it was really healing. All these years, I've been very uncomfortable talking about the loss to my friends and to my family because I feel like, everybody probably thinks I'm weird because I'm not over it. Like I feel embarrassed to talk about it because I feel like people are going to think, oh God, like she still hasn't let go, But what I found out is that the KISS fans haven't let go either. And so I found people that relate to me, and it was very healing to meet them. So it wasn't at all scary like I expected. It was actually very heartwarming. And I think, although I did break down and have my private moment of tears in the room, I think it was cleansing. I think it was a good cry. I think it was a release. And I think it gave me strength to move forward and complete this book. So imagine like when I look at the Playmates from the 50s and 60s, or even the 70s, when they had giant bushes of pubic hair, so you can barely see anything. And before that, they had to wear underwear like in the 60s, and it got more and more risque as time went on. But now with the birth of the internet, unfortunately, there's things on there I wish my son would, or any human being would never see, but it's right there for everybody to find on the internet. So my centerfold probably looks to my son like one of the women in the 1950s, with the cap and the big, bathing suit that covers almost everything, looks, in one of the 1950s magazines. It probably is like that. Somebody's jealous.
He's not the...
Like hell, he's not. He's a guy, isn't he?
Hey, look, we all know exactly what happens on that tour bus. I met going on that bus.
I wasn't on the set during like the scenes in the movie where they're wrecking, riding the motorcycle down the hallway and wrecking the rooms and the groupies are in the elevators. I wasn't in those scenes. I play Zakk Wylde's wife. So I was on set for 30 days. Mostly I had to do a lot of waiting around, which consisted of sitting in lawn chairs in the lot, drinking all day, margaritas and beer and everything else. There was a lot of partying on set. It was a lot of fun. It wasn't weird at all. I mean, it got weird later. I mean, it got very weird about 9 months later when I got pregnant by the director. But during the actual filming, it wasn't weird at all. It was it was fun. And it was great reliving that era and hanging out with people like Zach Wilde and Jeff Pilson, who I had known before, and Heidi Mark, who was also a Playmate, so I already knew her. So it was very it was friendly and it was fun, and it didn't even feel like work. Oh boy. Uh, Unfortunately, my best roles, my most meaty roles, where I had leads in films, it's always an accomplishment for an actress to book a lead in a film where someone trusts you to carry the film. That's happened a couple times, and for one reason or another, those films have bombed. Because I don't know if people understand how much it takes to make a good film, but you have to have the right director, the right lighting guy, the right sound guy, the right actors. You have to. It takes a very special chemistry, a lot of moving parts put together to make that magic happen. And it's all in my book, but for instance, I got a leading role opposite Chris Penn, and he actually kidnapped a PA to bring him to Crackdown to buy crack one day, and was violent on the set and like punching producers out for no reason and drunk all the time. And all my scenes were with him, and I was so excited to be able to work with Chris Penn. He was an award-winning actor, and then it turned out that he was so belligerent and dangerous because he was on drugs that I never got to do one scene with him. The producer, who was not an actor, had to jump in at the last second and play his character. They had to rewrite it every single day. Half my scenes in the movie were with him, and they all had to be rewritten every day to work around him. And security even would walk me opposite, like around the set, so I was never even near him or in contact with him, because he punched a producer in the face for no reason. So he could be volatile, and they didn't know, because he was on substances, like what he would do next. So it was a matter of just keeping me safe. And not that Chris ever threatened me. He never did. I never even had a conversation with him. But I'm just giving you an example of how high hopes, and when you have high hopes for a project, it just doesn't always work out the way you think. Other things give me great satisfaction. Like, even though I had one line in 2.5 Men, "Hi, my name is Pam and I'm a sex addict." It was only one line, but I became so famous for that one line that that's a different kind of satisfaction.
Hi, my name is Pam, and I'm a sex addict.
Because everyone has seen that episode. Like, I spent last summer in Ireland, and nobody knows me as Playmate Carrie Stevens or anything else, but they all recognized me as the 2.5 Men girl. So everywhere I went in Ireland, they're like, "Aren't you the 2.5 Men girl?" So that was really fun. And they continually play that episode. They play it on airplanes. They play it all over the world. I know, because I get residual checks, but it's fun to be associated with such a successful project like 2.5. Yeah, I would actually like anything to happen. Right now, because of what we're not going to talk about, COVID, there's really not much happening. I booked a movie May 2nd, which is now indefinitely postponed because the Screen Actors Guild has put regulations on all of the sets that basically most production companies can't afford, because most things are having to be on low budget contracts through SAG as it is. Even shows on Netflix, things that you'd be surprised about, are actually low budget projects. So, with the new requirements, every production is required to have 2 new departments. There has to be a COVID supervisor, and there has to be a health and safety department, and everybody cast and crew has to be tested 24 hours before their first day of work. Actors have to be tested 3 days a week. Anyone that's been in contact with an actor, meaning makeup artist, lighting guy, sound guy that hooks you up to the sound, has to be also tested 3 days a week. You can imagine how expensive this gets. Everyone's put in zones. You can't eat together. You have to be 6 feet apart, even at craft services. This does not sound like fun, I know. And only the very high budget productions are able to carry on like this until, there's a vaccine or there's herd immunity. This is the position that we're in. So I'm still getting auditions trickling in. They've become fewer and fewer. I've heard from my manager, it seems to be coming back. So there's hope, but I do have one project I really want to do. So I'll talk about that instead of these ones that are up to other people. It seems to me, from what I've accomplished, that sometimes instead of relying on auditions and producers to make decisions for you, sometimes creating your own is a better idea. And I would like to see parts of my book turn into a 12 or 13 episode show on Amazon or Netflix. I would like to partner up with a screenwriter who can translate it into a screenplay. I'd like to see that created. And I've had an idea for many years about doing a rock history travel show where I want to visit. I want to co-host, and it's a very simple concept. I want it to be a travel show that incorporates rock history and traveling, because there's so many interesting sites where bands have recorded, like in old castles in Scotland, or these big gorgeous castles in Ireland, or on the Sunset Strip, the hotel room that Led Zeppelin trashed, or where Aerosmith's original bus was found in a random field in Boston. To go to these locations and tell the history of rock and roll, and then get either the guys that were in the bands or that were producing with them or working security for them, anybody that had a connection to them that can help us tell the story, I think would be a great show. So that's something that I've had in mind for several years. I think now that I have the book out and branded myself as the Rock and Roll Centerfold, I think it probably is a good time for me to pursue that again, because someday the travel restrictions will be lifted, and there's certainly enough in America to start with. I had a couple producers interested several years ago. When I started it, it was going to be a mother-son travel show, because when my son and I travel together, that's what we do. We always look for where the rock history is. We want to go tour, we just sign up for the rock and roll tour, like when we went to London and we went to Abbey Road, and we wanted to see, even though James Hetfield doesn't really own it, we're in Paris, we had to go to the James Hetfield pub, we're rock history buffs, and so it came naturally. But now time just flies. My son was a kid then, and I think he was in 6th or 7th grade when we thought of it, and now he's in college. So I would like to host it. I think I'd make a great host. I'd get a co-host and be a producer, or if I found somebody that I thought would be a better host than me, I would be open to that as well. But yeah, I had the ball rolling for a little while. I think I needed a little more credibility that I can carry a show, a little more convincing to producers. And I think this book is the right vehicle to take me there. Activity breeds activity. That's always been my theory. Activity breeds activity. So sometimes you don't know where a project's going to take you, but you just have to move forward. I knew that there would be a day when I'd be done, because as the writer, and it's my life, I cannot pick it up without going, oh, well, I forgot about this. I could change this, or I should have added that story too, or da-da-da-da. But there was one point that I just said, it has to be done now. It just has to be done. It could go on forever and ever, ever. At some point, it has to be done. And then I realized that it's not my last chance to tell a story. I'll have plenty more to tell when I'm doing press. You know, the stories that I forgot and left out of the book, there'll be many more opportunities to visit them. I would like them to take out of my experiences that you own your own person, that any narrative that's ever been told to you, be it of a parent, a teacher, a spouse, a friend, is not real. That's their perception. And you should never judge yourself by someone else's words, or even by the way society treats you. And I think especially with Instagram, things like that going on, people do a lot of comparing to each other. And I think a big problem is a lot of people speak, or rather post, on impulse rather than with purpose. So what I would like from people to take from this is that I got to a point in my life where I didn't know who I was anymore, because I used to let everyone else dictate who I was, whether they were strangers commenting on my posts or remembering the words of my biology teacher in high school, or, you know, a thing that an ex-boyfriend said to me. And I began to, well, not began, it was over time that a false narrative about myself became my belief. And in the end of the book, I like to refer to my book, it's sort of like Almost Famous meets Eat, Love, Pray, because it sounds like, you know, your raunchy rock roll Hollywood tell-all, you know, but when you get to the end of it, it's quite spiritual. And you find out that I went traveling alone. I traveled off to the Dominican Republic. I went to Italy by myself for a few weeks. I went to Ireland for a few weeks, and being in places where nobody knew me as Eric Carr's ex-girlfriend. No one knew I was a centerfold. No one knew I was an actress. No one knew I was someone's mother. No one knew my last name. You know, so I was able to just be me. And in that process, I was praying for some big epiphany to happen. I was going into old churches, and like, I knew I had lost my identity. I was kind of having a midlife crisis and making, you know, like, I was praying for like some kind of epiphany to show me the way, show me what my purpose in life is, or what to do next. I was lost. And I never got an epiphany, but through being brave enough to go off by myself and shed, you know, everything familiar, I peeled off those 50 layers of damage. I didn't realize I was damaged, but I was able to peel all of that off and just get back to simply Carrie Stevens, who's just a simple, real, small town girl, the same girl I've always been. And I decide who I am now. I tell my story. Nobody tells me who I am.
to you.